Action Shelf. The Action Shelf. The Action Shelf.
Welcome to the Action Shelf, the podcast celebrates the glory of B-action movies. I'm John Campbell.
I'm Michael Listman.
Oh, Listman, we come out of Jean-Claude Van Damme to find ourselves in the Old West.
The Old West.
Yippee! Yay! Yeah, and I thought for sure that that we had stumbled onto something that was going to be, oh man, I was so ready for my review of this to be, what a standard genre exercise.
Right. Everything's rote. Everything's by the book. You've seen it in every other Western you've ever seen, including many Clint Eastwood films. But that's not what we got. We got something
much stranger.
Surprising.
At the very least, forget quality. Surprising is absolutely right. I was not at all ready.
It is surprising, and it does stand out because of that. This is the extent of the compliments I will issue this film.
This is 2015's Diablo. And we picked this because it is a Scott Eastwood Western.
Mm-hmm. His first. Has he done more? I don't know.
I think this is it, and I think that's a good call on his part.
Yeah, I would say even this one's not really a good call, but
no. But it definitely immediately when your dad is, once again, arguably the greatest Western star, certainly in the running for that distinction. Yeah, maybe stay away from the genre. I don't know. He did do a modern day movie where he was a rodeo rider. I don't know if that is anything. That's as close as he's come to this.
Okay.
But that's about it. But yes.
I wouldn't really count that.
No. But of course, we talked about him. If you're one of our patrons and you heard us talk about him in The Fate of the Furious, where he played government agent guy. You can also see him in David Ayer's Suicide Squad, where he plays government agent guy. He has a real, I think an immediate thing about him is he doesn't, unlike his dad, he doesn't feel like he belongs in this era. I kind of see him as a modern guy,
Yes, definitely. He is handsome in all the ways that Clint wasn't.
Right.
And in ways that people of this time period weren't at all. Like his hair is just like perfectly cut and like bleached and it looks too good. His beard is too perfectly sculpted.
I was watching this and I kept thinking Scott is what Clint would look like if he was a CW star.
Exactly. Yeah. Because he's got the brow. He's got the brow and the eyes, although his squint isn't as good.
No, but you can definitely see it. Like if you just mask out sort of the top and bottom of his head, he looks like Clint. He's definitely got the eyes. But
because his jaw is so it shoots outward in an angle that seems almost unnatural. He has such a prominent jawline. I don't know. He did not CW version of a Clint Eastwood movie. Yes, that
he
is
also
exactly
doesn't
what
have the build of his dad, because he's listed at 5'9", his dad's 6'4", and that laconic, rail thin kind of and he's just sort of like average sized guy. He's definitely really fit, but just doesn't cut the same shadow. And normally I wouldn't be this harsh except for when he's in a Western. That's where it becomes the comparison is there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at least he didn't wear a poncho.
Yes, I did think that. Because
although he did smoke a cigar at a few points. I wouldn't do that.
I noticed that. But this movie is much weirder than anything his father. Even his father's strangest movies like Pale Rider, never got this weird. This movie is, man, Lisman, is this? We talked about this when we did something like Crazy Six too. I think the worst these movies are when they try to be art films. Because this movie is going
they can be.
Yeah, this movie is going for highbrow, right? Like introspective.
This movie, it's high concept for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and boy, I don't know when we want to get into what the deal with this is.
Should we just rip this Band-Aid off?
Well, because I'll say just I'm just
build up to it a little bit.
Because
I will say the movie feels like it's stalling until that moment.
Yes.
So it's just like I'm just watching a random sequence of events.
No, look, I
with
thought
no real like tether, and then something big happens, and there's a twist, and I'm like, it's just been puttering around until the reveal happens.
To the point where like all of my notes for the first half of the movie are like, well, I don't really know why I should give a shit about anything. Like, it's all generic Western stuff, but I felt like, what am I missing? And that's like, oh, I guess I was purposely missing it. I'll just read what it says on IMDb here, because once again, it's what I went in expecting. A young Civil War veteran is forced on a desperate journey to save his kidnapped wife. Okay, well, that sounds like 400 other Westerns I've seen. And so I'm going in going, that's fun, sure.
I think part of that might be intentional, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Start generic as possible and then do the switch. And they did. They made it was completely unremarkable up until however long into this film the twist happens.
Yeah, it's the twist happens.
But should we start with the quote, John? Because this movie does start with a quote.
It starts with a Twain quote.
The Mark Twain quote, yeah.
Did you write it down, this one?
I did, yeah.
Please.
I don't know what it is about movies starting with like a quote or like something, because there's like an audacity to it that I feel like, okay, I have to write. Well,
there's especially when you're looking at like a straight to video release like this, right? There is something about this is and we see it a lot. Usually it's Bible quotes. These movies fucking love Bible quotes. Here it's a Twain quote, but it's still biblical in nature.
Yes.
But there definitely is this sort of thing where it's like, hey, everybody, get ready to think, right? Like, this movie is introspective. Now, I will say, I don't know, listen, have you seen the Equalizer films with Denzel Washington?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, we'll add that to the Last to Be Curious list. Those are some of my favorite action movies. Yeah. But the first Equalizer starts with a Mark Twain quote. But that movie is, it's got Denzel Washington, and it's actually a movie about, like, what violence does to the soul.
Sure.
Anyway, please read what the Mark Twain quote is here.
Okay. You'll have to imagine it with a...
sort of. Yeah, he's on a river boat.
Yeah, exactly. But who prays for Satan? Who in 18 centuries has had the common humanity to pray for the one sinner that needed it the most?
It's a great Twain quote. Twain was a very well-spoken guy and a brilliant writer.
And you know what? That would be great if that's what this movie was about.
I know. I literally think that the writer of this movie just Googled Satan quotes.
Yeah.
And then went, great.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
Very clearly came up with the name. Well, actually, no. I think the twist is the first thing they came up with. The second thing they came up with is the name of the movie, Diablo. And then everything else came from those first two decisions.
So this movie is written and directed by Lawrence Roke. This is his second film following 2012's The Forger, which I have never seen, but Scott Eastwood is also in.
And he has only done these two films.
That's
correct?
it. He's been in pre-production on a movie that I called Demigods, but he hasn't directed since 2015. I wouldn't hold my breath on that one coming out anytime soon. There's literally a hand-drawn poster for it on the IMDb that I'm going to guess he drew. Well, click on that movie, Listman, and look at that poster. It looks like a poster we would have drawn.
Let's take a look.
It looks like a poster you would have drawn for one of our high school movies.
Yeah, that makes sense. look at this guy's.
Yeah,
career.
Lawrence Roke. And like I said, this other movie is a drama, and actually, interestingly, his first film was screen legend Lauren Bacall's last film.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it has a good
Sad.
cast. It's also got Alfred Molina, and actually, this movie has a good cast too. I don't know where he's getting people.
The Hunt for Alex Cragg. Is
Yeah.
that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think my guess is
Yeah.
that was the title, and then they changed it to Demigods. But look, I mean,
Sure,
that just looks
yeah.
like something that would be torn out of a notebook.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
yeah,
the way that
especially
gun
a
is
high
scheduled.
schooler's notebook. Like it's the right mood for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Lawrence-
Somebody would have drawn that over the course of like a long, boring lecture class or something.
Yeah. So Lawrence Roke, I'm just trying to figure out where this guy is getting these people, because like I said, this movie
don't know.
also has a weird thing though, because this movie clocks in at like 83 minutes.
Yeah,
and like
it's real short.
and like 77 without credits. Which
Right, exactly.
blissful, especially for a movie based around a singular twist.
There's not much else other than one twist.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would have to
But
be.
this movie has a thing
short.
where he's got a bunch of good character actors in it who all show up for like a minute.
Yes.
It was really
It's
weird.
mostly a solitary journey.
It's mostly a
starring
solitary
Scott
journey,
Eastwood.
and also this could be the least amount of dialogue we've ever heard in an action shelf movie.
Yeah, and honestly, that's a blessing.
I think so too. And
Yeah.
the cinematography it's fine. It's sort of faux
It's
epic.
fun.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Anytime it tries to be epic, it ends up being funny. Like,
Right.
There's a shot of Scott Eastwood looking through his little telescope, and he's standing on a cliff side, and they zoom out to a wider shot, and maybe he's actually standing on that cliffside, but it does look like somebody put it together digitally. Him standing on
I
it. You know
feel
what I
like
mean?
that has to be the case, right? The
Yeah,
other thing is,
yeah.
this movie was shot in Alberta, Canada, and I could have told you that. Not Alberta specifically, but it has
Canada.
It has that vibe about this is supposed to be the American West, but they're shooting in Canada for cost saving.
Well, they did say Colorado.
They did say it is supposed to be
So-
Colorado, and this movie briefly is almost something I love, which is a snow western. I love a snow western.
Yes,
Um,
definitely.
As always, now something I'm starting to do is counter-program these movies. Don't watch this. Go and watch Sergio Corbucci's The Great Silence, which is a spaghetti western set in the snow. Oh man, that's the movie that was the primary inspiration for all the snow scenes in Django. In Django Unchained,
Yeah,
he
that
was
makes sense.
referencing The Great Silence by Corbucci, which is an amazing, actually dark, introspective character piece about people hunting each other in the snow and stuff. It's really good with Klaus Kinski. But
Yeah, I'm adding it to my watch
oh,
list. I'm
you'll
definitely-
love it, man. It is such a great. I'm a big Corbucci fan, as people call him, the other Sergio. But
Right,
he
yeah.
was also a great, and it has a Morricone score that's excellent as well.
Oh well,
And let's talk about that, because we have I think a firm nominee for most Sluminate performance, which is one of our shelfies. How the fuck did Walton Goggins end up in this thing?
don't know.
Because, but
don't
I'll
know.
also say every second he's in this movie are the best parts of this movie.
Agreed. Yes, he came out of it the best. I think
He is
unabashedly. He is just unabashedly in this film, which I do appreciate.
He is a
He's
guy-
just playing. Yeah.
He's one of those guys who, good or bad, it doesn't. He will always be amazing. He is just. I mean, you talk about a pure pro and a guy who seems game to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But
I will say this does fit his wheelhouse pretty
Yeah.
well. He plays a good villain.
He plays a good villain. He plays a
especially
good
an unhinged one.
unhinged, dangerous guy with a lot of menace in his eyes, which is good because
Yeah.
this is actually it's literally a non-existent part.
True. Yeah, that is part of the twist, actually.
Part of the twist, yeah. But I'm upset.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the Righteous Gemstones on HBO right now, and
Mm-hmm.
he is amazing in that. But I just think it's also interesting to see him in this when he's in both of Tarantino's westerns, and look, he is my favorite performance in Hateful Eight. I think he's incredible in that movie. So yeah, it's just one of those things. But also, fucking Danny Glover also shows up.
Yeah.
And that whole section of the movie is also better because Danny Glover's there.
That his scene is better in retrospect.
Yes.
He was making a clear choice, and I was confused by it because the movie was being purposefully obtuse.
Yeah.
But yeah, in retrospect, I'm like, okay, no, his performance makes sense.
Because this movie, at the beginning of the movie, I was so confused. It starts with people burning Scott Eastwood's house and barn, right?
Yes.
And then
media res, essentially.
In media res, it starts with that, and then there are some guys who who are these guys?
No idea. I have no idea. And given the twist that happens,
I know.
I'm more concerned about who they actually are.
Right. Yeah, because he goes to these guys and he's like, "Give me all the bullets that you can," classic Western shit. But the thing that's crazy is he goes, "My wife was taken by these Mexican bandits," basically, right? But we don't see that. We see the house get burned. No. We don't see his wife taken. So immediately, I'm definitely expecting a twist or something because I'm trying to go. Why were we not shown information?
See, with movies like this, I can't trust that the decisions made in the movies are intentional at any given point. So I just assumed it started this way because it's bad, which it is. But this did end up being an intentional choice.
It did. It's still bad though too.
But going into these films, I can't buy into what they're selling because why would I? That would be madness.
Right.
Madness.
No, there definitely was. I was ready to have a conversation about why is there a missing part of the story at the beginning? Yeah. Because the other thing is we get and I was also confused about this until eventually we get to the twist or some of the twist. Right. The other thing it says after you get the Twain quote is it says it's 7 years after the Civil War. So that's another thing, of course, where I'm clocking information and I'm giving the movie the benefit of the doubt and assuming the Civil War will be important to the plot.
Right, exactly. But we don't know with these movies because so many people don't think about the things that are going into their films. There's just no thought. Well,
this movie reminds
we guard ourselves.
Oh yeah. This movie reminds me a lot of the kind of stuff we saw when we were in film school, where it was all about being clever above being smart, or emotional or anything. Because I will say that the twist is oh wow, I didn't see that coming, but it actively also ruins the movie.
Yes, absolutely. Because the movie's over at that point, essentially. It begins and ends in the same scene, and then there's also a bunch more film as well.
And that's okay, well, now that the twist is happening, I really don't give a shit. I want to talk about the other guy who wrote this movie, Carlos de los Rios. Great name.
He has story credits? Or no. Lawrence Roick has story credits.
Right, Lawrence Roick is the director who has story credit, but this is the actual credited screenwriter. But I bring this up because the majority of his films are asylum-level mockbusters.
I'm seeing that. The Da Vinci Treasure.
The Da Vinci Treasure. Pirates of Treasure Island.
Yeah. War of the Worlds. They also did a War of the Worlds. 2005. That's interesting.
This is the other War of the Worlds that came out in 2005 when the Spielberg movie came out, and because War of the Worlds is public domain, somebody also. This is definitely this War of the Worlds has been a possible movie for this show. For sure.
Yes.
The cheap cash in grab, and then he wrote something called Syndrome of the Trespasser Island that is very much a King Kong ripoff.
Looks like it, yeah.
Bruce Boxleitner, Steve Railsback. The epic story that inspired King Kong. Oh, this is Arthur Conan Doyle. Once again, it's public domain stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
we're led to believe. I think Lawrence Roick had the idea for the twist, and he's like, "Let me bring in my friend Carlo,"
because he also wrote.
Come in and he wrote the other one.
He wrote the other movie he made.
This guy did.
Yeah.
it's a shame Lawrence Roick, for all of the talent he was able to get in the cast, he wasn't able to get any screenwriting.
No, it is. It's so crazy because like pretty much everybody that shows up in the movie, be it Adam Beach or Zima or Joaquim de Almeida or Danny Glover, are all like, oh, I know that guy. And then it's like, oh, he's dead. Okay, well, all right. on to Joaquim de Almeida in particular has maybe 4 lines. And he's a really good actor.
Yes,
Adam Beach does nothing but be a Native American stereotype, which is too bad. Because he's also a very good actor. I don't know what it's just like. I guess my only thought is, were these people already in Canada for some reason? And it's like, well, that'll take like less than a day. Why not collect a paycheck?
It like it's sort of like a timeshare scenario, perhaps, or like they were able to get into better films, but for some reason they did this one just so they could do those films. Yeah.
Oh man, this just Adam Beach is also in a movie that we keep talking about doing, and now reminds me once again we need to do it, and that's Into the Grizzly Maze.
Yes, we do.
We have to do Into the Grizzly Maze. Anyway,
so how does somebody like Lawrence Roick get? This is the part that I never understand.
Here's my thinking. Now I don't have a budget for this movie. But it can't be much, right? It looks cheap.
It does.
Like I said, that becomes very apparent when he's trying to do scope, which occasionally he does try to do. Right. So
he does try.
He does try, and the thing about it is, I also see, because if you look on IMDb for something, they have the awards that it won, and this movie won 2 awards at the Alberta Film and Television Awards. So my guess is this is a Canadian production, and you can get government funding for movies in Canada. There are like rules about if you use a certain percentage of Canadian people on the crew and a certain. So my guess is this is like an Alberta production. And I don't.
Why doesn't America have that?
I know.
Why? That? Why?
It's a huge.
Because England has the same fucking thing.
Yeah. You see that
for film and theater.
Yeah, you see that. I'll watch movies from England, and it will literally start with like paid for by funds from the lottery.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I'm going. We could. I wish the American lottery paid for movies.
Yeah.
We would be all over that shit. We'd be constantly writing
art's
requests.
Important, everyone.
It is.
Art's important.
And pretty much every country but ours gets that, which is a bummer.
Yeah.
Which is also weird because, like, truly, and I heard somebody say this once, and it's true. It sounds like a joke, but it's not. One of our most valuable exports is film.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a huge moneymaker in the U.S. Also, this was ultimately released by the good folks at Orion. Remember Orion?
I saw that. Yeah.
Which is now an Amazon company.
Okay, I was wondering like when that happened.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was part of Amazon at this point.
Not at this point. At this point, it was owned by MGM, which is still owned by, but Amazon bought MGM. But yeah, this is because we always talk about how Orion really had their peak in the 80s into the early 90s. And then they went bankrupt in the mid-90s, and in 2013, they relaunched the studio under the ownership of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, mostly for indie genre stuff like this.
Yeah.
They've never gotten back to the days of like when they made RoboCop and stuff like that.
Right, exactly. Which is
because we always talk about Orion once upon a time, and there's a great documentary out there. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but there's a great documentary about the history of Orion films. Because we always talked about Orion was sort of the like thinking man's canon.
Yes,
like they made action and genre stuff, but it was stuff like RoboCop and Total Recall, stuff that's a little bit better, a little bit smarter, real filmmakers.
Has something to say.
I mean, their biggest year was 1991 when they produced Silence of the Lambs, which won Best Picture. Cannon never produced a Best Picture winner.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
That would be fantastic.
I mean, I would love to see it if only for the Golan and Globus acceptance speech.
Yes, yeah, I'm sure it would be great.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. They won 2 years in a row. I forgot they also did Dances with Wolves. So they won 2 years in a row. 90 and 91 were both Orion releases for Best Picture.
And then 95, they're
bankrupt by 95. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah,
man.
Well, as it says here, the success of Dances with Wolves and Silence of the Lambs could not make up for years of losses. So they'd already lost so much cast that even the huge success of those movies was not enough to overcome the fact that they had blown apart a bunch of. Anyway, once again, look up look up if you just Google Orion Films documentary. It's really good. I highly recommend it. But so once again, I'm just starting this movie going like, okay, I guess we're just gonna drop us in, and he's riding off into the snow, and then it's a lot of him riding and looking around.
Yeah, that's first 15 minutes of the movie, I think.
And then eventually somebody starts shooting at him, and that's Joaquin de Almeida, who people probably best know as the villain from Desperado.
Yeah.
He's also the bad guy in Clear and Present Danger and Fast Five. Also going back to, if you're one of our patrons, you heard us talk about Fast Five. But anyway, yeah, and once again, I'm trying to remember the beginning part of the movie because it's all so strange to think about once you know what the big twist is.
Yeah, it's I honestly don't remember him in this movie.
He's shooting at him, and then he's been shot, Joaquin de Almeida, and Scott Eastwood's like, where did they take her? You got to tell me, and he's torturing him.
Oh yes, okay, yes. I do remember that.
He's torturing him.
This scene was confusing because it wasn't clear that this guy was with the gang, because we're not shown who the gang members, quote unquote, gang members are. In the beginning of the film, so I'm just like, this could be anybody.
Right.
Why are we torturing this man?
Right. So, I have no idea.
But yeah, so that's not good.
I don't know. So yeah, and but also I'm like, did he get any information out of him? I don't know.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, exactly. No. So then it's just like he pretty much goes from like place to place, and then somebody else shoots at him. And this time, arrows are being shot at him, but it's just a kid.
It's just a child, right?
Yeah. Oh no.
A Native American child. Shot some arrows.
A Native American child. It's like he just is. The beginning of this movie, I just thought, is this going to be the whole movie? Because then the kid runs off, and then he meets this.
End of that scene.
Yeah. Then he meets this Chinese guy who's Zima, who's a great character actor. Who people
and he has nothing.
I know.
In this film.
It is
literally nothing.
What a fucking waste. Zima, who's in a million things.
It could have been anybody. Like literally, it could have been anybody.
This is one of those movies, where it's like I shouldn't know this actor.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's not. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean. It's just like, and here's somebody else to waste in this movie, because he gets shot by Walton Goggins, who shows up, and at this point,
this is Walton Goggins' intro, right?
Yeah.
So this movie doesn't understand tension at all, or how to build it.
No.
Lawrence Roick really needs to watch some Hitchcock. And just take notes.
Yeah.
But yeah, this Chinese, as you said, this Chinese guy pulls out a rifle and is like about to shoot. I almost said Clint Eastwood.
Scott Eastwood, yeah.
Scott Eastwood's character.
Yeah.
Jackson, I believe is his name. Mm-hmm. Just Jackson. Don't worry about the rest of his name. Just Jackson.
It doesn't matter.
And instead of building tension, like, oh, is Scott Eastwood gonna die here? I don't know. Instead, you see Walton Goggins slowly walk from off frame for about 5 seconds until he pulls out a gun and shoots the character.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, that's not surprising at all. Like, couldn't he have shot him from off screen and then revealed that he was there? Why have him slowly walk in on the background? This is his intro.
Well, I'll tell you what.
One of the biggest actors you have in the film.
What would have been a good moment is if Zima pulled the gun on Scott Eastwood, and then the camera zoomed into a close up, and then we heard the gunshot, and for a split second you're like, did he shoot Scott Eastwood? And then you see that he's been shot, and then you reveal Walton Goggins, whose first line in the movie, because there are technically only two kind of ish one-liners, and they're both from Walton Goggins. And he says, "Sometimes I just can't help myself." And not only is Walton Goggins great,
pretty much the character.
Yeah, not only is Walton Goggins great because he's always great, but he's also just the only person with some real energy in this movie. I also feel like it's like he comes in, you're like, this guy's from a different movie. Because he's got, nobody else comes to this level where he's just like, I'm a psychotic bad guy. And it's a one-note performance because it's, as we're talking about, it's supposed to be. But still, you're just going like, oh, wow, an injection of energy into this pretty dull movie.
Yes. And I got the impression like he was improvising dialogue.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't know if I can say that with certain.
But
his lines were so strange that it felt improvised.
I mean, he is well known
in a good way.
He's well known for his improv abilities because he works on Righteous Gemstones with Danny McBride and all those people. So he comes from an improv background and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if that was the case. It certainly would explain a lot of this performance we saw. So by the way, also highly recommend his turn. Talk about another thing. No, I enjoy the movie, but like he totally walks away with the second Ant-Man movie, coming in as the villain in that, and he just sort of shows up as this weird threat throughout the movie, and you're just like, what is this energy in a Marvel movie? He's such a unique presence on screen. So
I forgot he was in that movie.
Yeah,
it's been quite a while.
He's what's great is he's not like a supervillain. He's just like a shitty gangster guy who's sort of like in amongst the stuff going on in that movie, and he's great. And obviously those movies have tons of improv with guys like Rudd and stuff like that. So I wouldn't. But and he talks. So his whole thing is, and all of it, because we're holding off on revealing the twist because once again. What is the point of any of this dialogue once we get to it? When he talks about like, you owe a toll for crossing my road. And once again, I'm just going like, okay, he's like bandit bad guy in action, in Western.
Yeah. The man with the black hat. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Totally. And so he tries to shoot and kill Scott Eastwood. But then they get into like a tussle and then suddenly he just disappears. And that's your first like, well, that was weird.
Yeah.
Like suddenly Walton Goggins isn't there.
I can't know for certain if it's just bad editing. I can't trust that it's intentional or not.
That's why I'm going like it's just weird. I don't know if if that means anything. But I was like, well, that's weird.
It's an odd choice. He wakes up and he's healed. He's been healed by some Native Americans.
Oh because there's also we don't know who, but bullet because obviously Walton Goggins couldn't have shot him. He gets shot by unseen guns from the woods.
I guess so.
Which I guess are the people with his wife. To take it.
I guess.
I don't know.
But
holy shit. I don't know that this is actively offensive or anything, but it is so rote and stock Native Americans in a Western.
Yes.
I don't know that. I always said I don't know that I would actually go as far to say like Jesus Christ, this is like problematic, but it definitely is like that's the best you're gonna get. Okay. Once again,
Dances with Wolves. This movie is not.
No, none of that. No. Sorry for the other Orion Native American Western. But I mean, because once again they're chanting and they've put some weird like ointment or whatever, some kind of root or grass or something on his shoulder wound, and they're doing a weird ceremony in like a sweat lodge thing.
Yeah, they do peyote, right?
Yeah,
They
because then he
they
comes
make him
stumbling
do
out
peyote.
here, and we get our little horror beat when we have this decaying corpse of a dead Union soldier.
Yeah, but they didn't like the camera didn't do anything to make it scary. It was just a man in makeup.
Yeah.
So
And so once again,
yeah.
like I would say is my overriding feeling of this movie, I just go, well, that's weird. That's kind of my reaction to this whole movie is just like, well, that's kind of weird. Why are they doing that? And I don't.
It's baffling.
Whatever
Sure.
feeling I'm supposed to be getting, whether it's unsettled or disturbed, I'm more just like, huh? Or just going,
Befuddlement?
yeah, just sort of like, this isn't what I thought this movie was gonna be like. Okay.
Yeah, all right. Well,
And then
Sure.
when the turn happens, it's like, oh, well, that's dumb.
it's just bad. Oh,
Yeah,
I see.
gotcha.
Now I see.
Gotcha.
The twist that they've been setting up is over, and now it's just bad.
Right.
You know.
Right. It's,
Yeah.
now it's just bad. So they so yeah, he sees this soldier who's like, why did I have to die? Why'd you let me die, brother?
Yeah.
Oh, it's his dead brother. Oh no.
Bum, bum.
Oh Lord, no. This guy's
Wow.
got demons, literal demons.
Oh no, I don't like that, John. I don't like that. I don't like when our protagonists have demons.
So I think all of our protagonists have demons, I'm pretty sure. Not uncommon in an action shelf film to say he's a tortured hero of some sort.
Yeah, absolutely.
So once again, then he's like, okay, now I'm all healed. Because this movie, once again, it's just got to go. There's no time. It's so short.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
I'll say that. It's not a
Is this the
boring
shortest
watch.
Western? Is this the shortest Western you've ever seen?
It's got to be up there.
When I think, because when I think of Westerns, I think of long movies.
Yeah.
Usually between 2 and 3 hours.
Yeah.
You know.
It's something that when people don't like Westerns, because you and I both love Westerns. That's always like one of the reasons we always want to do more Westerns. But I feel like often the complaint I hear about them is that they're boring. And I always feel like, well, they're not boring, but there's like a laconic nature to them. They are very moody and atmospheric, and they don't often have a lot of dialogue. And it is a lot about pastoral images and guys on horses across plains. Here, this is, I mean, unless you're talking, certainly in any kind of modern era, because unless you're talking about literally like the B westerns of the 50s, you're really pretty rare to find something this show, like under 90 minutes. Good Lord.
Is crazy. Yeah. Fistful of Dollars is like an hour 38 or something
like that. Yeah, and
so
that's the
pretty
shortest
close,
of the Dollars trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they only go up from there
Just,
until you get to the 3 hours
exactly.
plus that is Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. You know, and I think Once Upon a Time in the West is right around 3 hours as well too.
Yeah, exactly.
So once again, he goes, here, kid, have this rifle. He gives the Native American kid, and the other Native Americans are like yelling at him, but in a language we don't understand. So I'm just going like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah, why did he want to give this kid the rifle? Why did they react so negatively? Like, why? Like, I don't fully understand why anything's happening at this point.
And everybody's shouting in a Native American language I don't understand, and then the scene goes. The scene never lets you in on any kind of context visually, or you're just like, wait a minute, they saved him and now they're upset. Why though?
Yes.
Yeah, that's sort of the thing where I'm just like,
well, this is kind of like a Joker moment, because again, we're getting to the twist, but I'm led to believe that what is happening in this scene is not actually what happened here.
It's got to be, right?
Yes, when we get to the next, I think the next scene is the Danny Glover.
Well, the next scene actually is that Walton Goggins just appears out of nowhere and kills these Native Americans.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay, gotcha.
And once again, I'm going like, wait, how the fuck did he? I'm not confident in the, like you're talking about. I'm not confident enough in the movie to think that this is, but it definitely, I was like, well, he's almost like a mystical figure.
Yeah, why is he following Scott Eastwood's character?
Yeah, that's a good question
It's
too.
always Scott Eastwood first, and then the other character. I don't know what his character's name was.
The Goggins character.
Yeah,
it's listed as Ezra, but I don't remember him ever saying that.
Yeah, I don't remember
that. So next now he goes to his old squad mate, right? Like this guy served with him, and it's fucking Danny Glover, one of my favorite actors.
Yeah.
I love Danny Glover. And Danny Glover is in on this movie. Like, I mean, once again, but it's also sort of like a lazy use of Danny Glover where it's like, we want to put some gravitas in here. Let's get somebody. It's like, your script isn't good. Danny Glover just has gravitas.
He'll elevate it, yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, like I said before, I was confused about his performance in this scene. It seemed discordant with what we'd seen about Scott Eastwood's character so far.
Because he's living out in this house with his granddaughter, and Scott Eastwood shows up and he goes, "Oh, this is the guy I served with. Yeah, I'll help you. Just take your horse around to the barn." And then somebody's like, "Get a fucking gun. This guy's a psychopath." And I was just like, what?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
What is happening?
And he's just like, "If I don't come back, you shoot him. Do you understand me? That is the most dangerous man in the world." He's like,
I'm just so baffled. Nothing I'd seen about this performance. Because again, I can't trust the film, so I'm like, is it just that Scott Eastwood can't do enough of a performance to have illustrated these aspects of the character?
Yeah.
Or is it intentional?
That's the thing.
At this point, I didn't know.
I think Scott Eastwood is like
confused.
I think Scott Eastwood in general, and I've seen him in enough stuff, he's fine. Like, he's generally an okay actor. But yeah, literally no one could play the levels needed for this. It would be impossible to play this part.
It would be impossible. Yes,
so
absolutely.
I have no...
Yeah, I'm not saying that as a besmirchment of Scott Eastwood.
No.
But like in this movie, I didn't know. I could not trust that it...
And I don't even know... How could you approach this? Like, if you got this script as an actor, where would you even begin?
Well, because as soon as you get to the script, you then, as an actor, have so many questions that it's nelike answered and is frankly uninterested in answering.
Right.
Which is so frustrating. I found, like, after the twist, I was just frustrated for the rest of the movie.
Agreed.
Because, like, this is so... Like, this doesn't make sense. Like,
no.
Narratively, this doesn't make any fucking sense.
No, and and you have to, as an actor, like, lie to yourself in the performance, right?
Yes.
In order to make because it's all, the whole movie's about serving this twist, which we're just about to get to here. Because Danny Glover is suddenly fucking terrified of this guy who seemed like one of his best pals a second ago.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And so he's like, he starts freaking out because, let's see, what happens here? He's talking about, this all comes out when he's talking about, he's talking about Scott Eastwood to his granddaughter. And he talks about, that guy was, specifically, he said he was General Sherman's best killer. If you know anything about the Civil War, which I'm far from an expert, but certainly General Sherman was one of the big figures of the war and the famous Sherman's March. That is like one of the turning points of the war. And so this guy was like his top operator or whatever, and he killed everybody, but he freaked out because he killed his own brother.
Right. Yes. I guess that
accidentally shot his own brother, which I guess that drove him insane. Then but all of a sudden Danny Glover goes outside and he's talking to him, and he's like talking him down. I'm going, what is happening? He's just like
he's just packing up his horse, getting ready to go, and he
goes like, well, can I
please leave us alone? God, don't kill us.
It's literally, I think it's like, so should I just go around back to get my horse water? Hey man, just be cool, okay? Whatever you do, just leave my granddaughter out of this. Yeah, so that's the thing I can mount him up over there and just kind of put a saddle on. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any clean water? Maybe a well or maybe a
I don't know if you have any food, I could eat something before I go on my way. Just calm the fuck down, buddy.
Yeah, that's the energy of this scene. I'm like, I don't know what to make of this. I'm so confused. This is the height of my confusion.
Well, because then Walton Goggins shows up. I'm like, what the fuck, man? What are you doing here now? And then we see Walton Goggins walk up and pull a gun, but then we see it from the granddaughter's perspective in the house, and this is the first time we now see Scott Eastwood is the one holding the gun. Because, yes, folks, there is no Walton Goggins. The big twist in the movie is Scott Eastwood is the villain.
Yes. And so you may be wondering, what force is he going to be opposing? What obstacles is he going to be overcoming after this point, now that he's revealed to be the villain? And there are none. Maybe the kind of putters on, he kills a bunch of innocent people, and then the movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
That
is
is the
just
rest
like,
of this film.
Because there's you could take this twist and do something interesting with it, where it is.
Yes, that's what was so frustrating.
The killer inside him, man, battling his dark reflection. Oh, that could have been interesting. Nope.
No. They're so uninterested in that. So this is my question, John.
Yeah.
Why obviously they wanted a twist. So separate the fact that they wanted a twist to be in this movie.
Right.
Why have Walton Goggins play like a different part of him in the movie if them like conflicting against each other is not the point of the film? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like why set that up if after this point Walton Goggins is no longer in the film, and it's just Scott Eastwood doing a Walton Goggins impression.
Right.
I
don't know. It's so strange.
Like, why set that up?
Yeah, because you could totally have this like Jekyll and Hyde thing.
Are we led to believe that part of him isn't aware of this other personality?
Well, that's also
like,
interesting.
Is that what we're led to believe?
Well, you talk about the movie not answering questions. I don't know.
Yeah. It's not clear because he never behaves like he was behaving in the beginning of the film past this point. Past this point, the reveal, he's just playing evil. So I don't understand why he was delivering all of his lines like he was confused and, like he was a different person at the beginning of the film.
Right.
It just doesn't make any sense.
No.
And that's the main question I would have as an actor is like, is this like some sort of dissociative disorder?
Yeah, because that's
like psychosis,
like
or
a
like
Two-Face sort of
what
thing.
What is this?
That could be an interesting thing, right? Like do that. This like in order to survive the traumas of the war, he basically bifurcated himself into the man and the killer.
Right.
This is all fascinating stuff that this movie has no interest, because now it's pretty much just him shooting people for the next 25 minutes. Until the end of the movie. Because now also, and where it goes from here, you're like, okay, well, so the woman's not his wife then, right? He's insane.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And you talk about it gets into that nihilism of the Joker that I hate, where it is like, okay, so it's just the descent into madness and nothing else. There's no interesting commentary, no point to this. We're getting into
war is hell, like no PTSD sort of exploration.
No, nothing like that. It's that thing where it's very, it's less on the nose as Joker because it's set in the Old West, so we're not literally talking about like psychological diagnoses, but it's still this movie that's very flippant about mental illness.
Yes, and
dude's fucking crazy, right? Like.
He's fucking crazy. But like the quote at the beginning is specifically talking about like the Satan is a sinner just like all other sinners.
Right.
And we are supposed to have sympathy for these people. They've just lost their way.
Right.
Where is that touch here in the script itself?
And
why can't
I almost thought
if they were exploring that would be interesting.
And
Yeah.
because I
Sorry, go
almost
ahead.
thought in the final scene with him and another wasted actor in this movie, Camilla Bell, who has fucking
Yes.
nothing to do as the
Absolutely
woman
nothing.
who he. Also, that's unclear what exactly there. She talks about like you've built this fan. Is it just a woman he like saw or something like that, or
Yes.
did he
I
kidnap
think
her?
that's what they're implying.
Yeah.
I think he kidnapped her.
Right.
Yes,
and
I
then
believe.
because we find that she's with her real husband.
Yes.
Who's also a good actor, that guy who has nothing to do in this movie either. I get it. I can't.
No.
Well, his name is Jose Zuniga, who I've seen in many, many good things.
Yeah.
You know, but once again, yeah. So then you're just like, what's the? I thought I was gonna say is I thought there was a second when maybe she was gonna reach the human inside of him in some capacity,
Yes.
and it still would have been kind of
Yes.
lame, but at least it would have been some wrinkle on something, some point to be made about finding the sympathy in the monster. Because you're right. Like, why bring the devil into this at all?
I don't know. I you're like you were saying, even if it was just, even if you just see a glimmer of the innocent man, who existed before the war in this scene, like,
or even
but
make
then
that clear,
he gives into the temptation of violence or whatever.
You could still,
and it's still a tragic ending.
Oh, you could still do he can't be saved, but still like something about like they don't even make it clear on the idea of the war made him into this. It's sort of you have to kind of piece that together through your own, okay, that's the only way to read this where it makes any sense. Man.
So and are we led to believe that he's not Jackson from the point of the reveal? Right? He's just Ezra, because he only behaves like Ezra past this point.
That's true. I don't know.
So why? It's so underwhelming. It's
and as you're talking about, it's frustrating. We see a lot of bad movies on here, but rarely am I as frustrated as I am by this movie. It's so what are you? Oh my God, no.
Yeah.
Because it's trying to say something. I would take a stock standard Western over this. This is so much more infuriating to me.
I don't know. It is more frustrating than something like that.
Yeah.
It does stick in your head a little better because it is.
Yeah.
But I guess that's not necessarily a good thing because it's also not a good film. So like having it stuck in your head is net negative at that point.
So the final third act of the movie is he tracks the party that's riding with his wife in quotes.
Yes.
And chases them back to their home where he proceeds to just terrorize and murder them for the rest of the movie.
Yes, these are innocent people that he is
We know nothing about them other than they are a Mexican family.
Yeah. And again, if it was played for tragedy, it's like awful that this.
But it does seem like, at a certain point,
is,
then it would have to be from their perspective, right?
It should be, yeah, absolutely, yeah. But like that's what I was expecting to happen.
Yeah,
is after it's revealed, then it goes into who these people are, and
no,
I don't know.
No, they're so ill-defined,
and
he proceeds to shoot a bunch of. There's a really graphic throat slitting, which seemed unnecessary.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
That was pretty unnecessary.
Of all the violence, suddenly we just lean into that and really zoom in on the ugliness of that murder. Okay.
Yeah, and why focus?
Yeah.
What about this specific person leads you to want to do that as opposed to just quickly shooting them in the chest like everybody else?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, that guy wasn't. He wasn't. There was nothing about that guy.
Nope. Because again, this movie's not interested in highlighting anything here.
No.
It's just like, oh, you know what should happen? He should slit somebody's throat really creepily. We're like, okay, let's put it in the movie, and then they did, and that's how it got made.
Yeah. So they, So finally, it ends up with him. He ends up locking himself in a room with Camilla Bell, who's doing the best she can. I think she is a good actress. She has nothing to do here, but
I mean, there's no way anybody could be good in this
No.
film, other than apparently Walt.
We saw, because that guy can be good in anything. He's amazing. And Danny Glover is good in retrospect, as we talked about.
Yes, yeah.
I guess his performance makes more sense. So he's locked in the room. Her real husband is outside the door with a gun, but of course can't get in and can't shoot through because he might hit her. And then she goes from terrorized to like understanding and comforting him, and then kisses him, but it's just to get his gun so she can shoot him.
Yes.
Which she does.
And it's like, why?
Yeah.
But it doesn't kill him.
I thought, like I said, I thought this was going to be the end when he was going to finally, like, kind of come back to and be like, oh my God, what have I done? What have I become?
Yeah.
Like, in this moment, I thought that was going to be the moment. I thought this was where we were going to really dig into the tragedy and the emotional turmoil of this.
You know, make good on the quote that was at the beginning of this film. You know, that's kind of what we were expecting.
Well, that's what would have happened if she had been the one to show him sympathy instead of just reacting like another person terrorized by him. Is instead like, I'm trying to understand you, and through that he's able to put the guns down. You know, that's something. I'm not saying, once again, I'm not saying that'd be good. I'm just saying that would be something.
Yeah. And much like an actor, I feel like a writer needs to approach their villains as not writing them as villains.
Of course.
You know what I mean? They're just doing what they do, or, you know, however, but the problem is they were just like, he's so evil. Yeah, he's going to do like an evil smile at the end, and then it will end with him shooting everybody.
It's interesting.
Yeah, he's so evil.
Well, because it's interesting, as I was reading through the reviews, which I, of course, share an incredibly misguided one here in a second when we're done talking about this. But there's a lot of people who talk about this as this brilliant psychological horror movie, that this is this scary turn in the film. And you're like, no, it's not. It's just stupid. But like the idea of like, that's how, now he's the monster coming for them. Which I'm like, oh, once again, if you want to do that though, okay, then we need
from his perspective.
Yeah, we need to be the perspective of that. It is that. I mean, it does get into that Joker thing where it's like, dude, if I'm with the Joker, then it's really hard to engage with this movie.
Yeah. Like, we cannot empathize with this person. You have actively made it impossible, despite setting up that that's what your movie is about. And you made it impossible.
Whenever I see a movie like this, or Joker, or any number of attempts to do this, you realize how fucking good Paul Schrader's script for Taxi Driver is. When you realize, like, oh man, because he does that, and almost it's oft attempted to do. Or you go the complete opposite way of an American Psycho, where the whole world is so fucking heightened and insane that you're just like, okay, well, I can't sympathize with anyone, so it's all just this broad satire where you're above the material.
Yeah, it's like, it's satirical, it's absurdist. You know? That's an intentional choice.
Or I didn't even think about this. These guys are definitely Fight Club fans, right?
Well, that's what this movie is.
Right.
So, like, this movie is... I want you to imagine Fight Club, but the moment that Edward Norton realizes that Brad Pitt is him, it's just Edward Norton, and he's just blowing up buildings for the rest of the film. There's no conflict. It's just him blowing up buildings. That's what this movie is. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. It's... Like, it is trying to be smart, but it might be one of the dumbest movies I've ever seen on this podcast.
That's the thing, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. You have so much further to fall if you're trying to be smart. A lot of these, this is like, whatever, it's dumb, but they were just trying to blow stuff up. But as soon as these movies are like, no, we're really trying to do something, then I'm like, oh, fuck off, movie. Come on. You can't. And so then let's talk about the ending, which is... ambiguous.
Ooh.
Because it ends with Camilla Bell caught between... She's now standing between Scott Eastwood and her husband, and they each have a gun on each other.
Yeah.
And
that's not where I would stand if I were her.
No, that seems like a bad idea.
Probably. It seems like... Because that's something you do if you don't want either person to shoot the other one. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
But that's not what she wants. She wants Scott Eastwood to be dead. So I don't fully understand the blocking here.
Yeah, shouldn't it just be she should just run out of there and go like, shoot him?
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
instead
Or like,
instead she's
yeah,
just
it's
like
very-
she's just like, no, everybody put your guns down.
yeah.
Even
yeah,
though
it's very
he's just a psycho home invader at this point.
yeah, and she shot him already, intending to kill him.
Yeah. And in fact, the only reason she didn't kill him was there was only one bullet in that gun because she goes to try to shoot him again.
Yeah.
And it's empty.
Yeah. So what is this scene? I don't know.
What the fuck are you doing,
It's like
lady?
they wrote it. They wrote it in a void, like in a vacuum,
And
like,
then
without the rest of the film for context.
so they each pull the hammers back on their guns, and then gunshot go to black on the gunshot, and we hear her crying, Diablo.
Diablo.
That's
it.
That's the thing. That's not
Stupid.
artistic. That's just not writing an ending.
That's just not knowing how to end a script.
Right.
is what
That's
that-
but
yeah.
you know he thought it's like, ooh, this is so artsy. It's up to the audience's interpretation of what
And he
happened.
was probably masturbating while saying this. You know, he's just like,
yeah.
when he came up with
yeah.
the ending, he climaxed.
Oh,
you know,
yeah. It was the he climaxed when it climaxed.
exactly.
He
Yeah,
climaxes
yeah.
with his films. Yeah, like I said, but that's that kind of thing that I've talked about. Like, that's that film student mentality I hate, where it's like, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You don't get the satisfaction of knowing. Isn't that edgy, man?
Oh, it's so good because it's like different than other movies because it just ends. you know?
But as we've
And
talked
there's
about,
no
the thing
oh.
that's always funny about when people do that is like, as we've been talking about, like it's not different than other movies. Actually, it's just a worse version of other movies.
It's just worse. Yeah, exactly.
And it's something.
Yeah, there are plenty of movies that just end abruptly, you know, and are good. But
Oh,
this movie
absolutely,
is-
some of my favorites. But like
Yeah.
the thing, and something I think doing this show, and just I feel like as an older audience member, watching movies and having seen so many movies, I'm kind of over the like. That's right, man. We did things differently. Like, if you can do that naturally in a way and really surprise me, but like, I see too many movies that try to do that, and I end up just being like, oh, can you just tell a story? My God.
Right.
Like, you start to realize
I think-
why tropes and formulas exist.
And like you said, I'm totally open for that kind of thing to happen if done well. But like that on its own is no longer, you know, mesmerizing. Like you need
Right.
a basic substance to your storytelling. You need characters that have objectives and needs themselves and you know, are obstacles to each other. Like you need drama. And and if you don't have that, then all of these bells and whistles don't matter.
Well, and
they're
so,
just
like,
it just makes it worse.
Like we're talking about with this movie, I think so many of these movies start by going like, we're going to do the twist, rather than writing a movie and going like, oh, wait, here's where it could go. You know, I feel like a lot of the best twists come out of like, oh, shit, wait, we could just go, oh, we could do that. You know,
yeah, because a lot of these movies feel reverse engineered in that way.
Right.
This one doesn't even feel reverse engineered because there's nothing around the twist. It's just like
it's just like a twist. It was the
Yeah,
twist,
it's
and then
just
they're
a
like,
twist.
then what else happens? I don't know. The guy is really the bad guy. I mean, that was this. Like, what if the
he just kills
hero
everybody.
was the villain? And then what's he do? I don't know. Then he just kills everybody because he's evil. And the government of Canada was like, yeah, okay, sure, we'll fund that shit. Man, that's Diablo. It's not a good movie.
That's Diablo.
It's not a
Nope.
good movie.
No, it's not.
And this guy, I wouldn't even go so far as to say I hope he doesn't make another movie, as much as he does not deserve to make another movie. I'm sorry. If this is what he's shoveling out there, man, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But, listen,
Well,
believe
he really takes his time. He takes his time. You know, he lets it bake for a long period of time and lets it really get ready before he... I think his next one will be pretty good.
But believe it or not, there are people who thought this one was pretty good. So once again,
I don't believe you.
We open up the IMDb user reviews to find the most misguided reviews, and I actually have two here because sometimes I can't decide. So, and both of them are high praise. All right, so here's one of this is an example of what I was talking about. Horror, psychological thriller, and modern western. ... Excellent. That's the title. I was not expecting a movie with such a perfectly horrific presence and reality. I was not expecting a movie with such a perfectly horrific presence and reality check of the horrors of war. I love the transition between Scott Eastwood and Walton Goggins' Faces of El Diablo. It was so well done that I almost missed the obvious. How could Ezra keep pace with Jackson unless they were one and the same? I love how Lawrence Roke used Benjamin Carver, Danny Glover's character, to finally weave the two into one person. I take my hat off to Carlos de los Rios and Lawrence Roke for designing a character so flawed in his own perception of the world, so lost in his own wickedness, and so far beyond grace and humanity. Of course, Scott Eastwood's fair-faced portrayal of Jackson plays into building upon your sympathies. We have all bought into false realities as if we were lucky, and if we were lucky, live to regret it. In this movie, you also see a character, an excellent soldier, affected by his own engagement in the U.S. Civil War. There is no doubt that Ezra is suffering from emotional effects of the war on him, as we know of them today as PTSD and other acute war-related syndromes. It's no surprise, once you understand the distress that soldiers experience during war, that they find it hard to be the same emotionally ever again. There is no doubt that war fatigue could turn the mildest of people into mentally traumatized killers. We all wrestle with the nature of our souls at times, and we are not soldiers or were never in the military. Jackson has not lost his soul. It's been possessed. His own dead brother appears before him as proof. The imagery was hauntingly relevant. Carlos de los Rios and Lawrence Roke have simply updated the reality of surviving the Civil War with accepted knowledge of the symptoms of psychological damage being forced to kill. In the case of one particular consequence, a monster is born. Diablo. It's one hell of a movie. 10 out of 10 stars.
I'm very sleepy after that.
But I just, once again, we saw how fucking dumb this movie is, and this guy's writing this essay about, oh my god, the image. But it's just like, yeah, man,
This is a dissertation. This is a dissertation of this film. This is almost as long as the film itself.
And then in a similar way, here's another review that's titled, "A must-see Western thriller, unlike any Western you've ever seen." Diablo is a must-see movie. I've seen it at the Carmel Film Festival. Small note here. Carmel, California, which is where that festival is. The former mayor of which was a man named Clint Eastwood. So interesting that Scott Eastwood's movie played the Carmel Film Festival. That's interesting. Yes. Clint Eastwood was briefly the mayor of Carmel, California. Anyway, I've seen it at the Carmel Film Festival with a big group of friends who all enjoyed the movie. We could not stop talking about the movie afterwards. I was on the edge of my seat from beginning to end, totally different than any Western I've ever seen. I love the way the movie absorbed and spun my brain. Addressing PTSD in a Western movie is genius. By the way, there are tons of other Westerns that deal in PTSD that are infinitely better than this. Yeah. That's my own note. But just the cinematography was superb. No, it wasn't. The acting, top-notch. Some of it. One guy in particular. The writing was perfection. Brilliantly directed movie. I would love to say more about Diablo, but I do not want to spoil this mind-blowing film of all of you. I highly recommend this movie and will definitely be going to see it again. I hope the crew of people get together and make another movie soon. Bravo! All caps, 3 exclamation points. 10 out of 10 stars. Good Lord, folks.
Yeesh.
See,
Yeesh.
Anytime I see stuff like that, I'm like, have you guys seen other movies? This is bad.
That's what's crazy. That's what's crazy. I don't understand how anyone can watch this.
There are so many other movies that deal with the same subject matter in so much smarter of a way than this. It's crazy. It's like, once again, it's not a new idea to talk about the Civil War in modern PTSD psychological speak at all.
What if the film was from... So the first half of the film is from Scott Eastwood's character's perspective.
Yeah.
And the scenes that he's seeing are not actually what's happening, but are his distorted interpretation of the film. Then the switch happens halfway through, and suddenly it's everybody else's perspective.
Well, I'll tell you, here's the other thing too. I think what would be really interesting is if Camilla Bell was the co-lead on that, and we see her as his doting wife until we realize she's this terrified captive. That's what. Instead of him searching for her, it should be him with her. That would really, I think, have made this point a lot better. But no. All right. Well, we didn't think this was very good. What do you say we come up with? Obviously not a sequel to this, but we come up with a better Western vehicle for Scotty. Well, no, fuck that. Let's go with a better Western vehicle for Walton Goggins. He deserves better.
Okay, great.
Let's make a movie where Walton Goggins is the lead. I'm going to fire up our handy dandy action movie title generator, and we're going to use this to go. Let's see here. I got a. Okay. All right. Here we go. Ruins of Gold. That sounds like a Western.
Ruins of Gold.
Ruins
it does
of Gold.
Sound like a Western.
Ruins of Gold. I may have hit that a couple times until I got one that worked as a Western.
Sure.
Yeah. Ruins of Gold, though. Well, now, what I like about this, I'll tell you, because it's Ruins of Gold, it makes me think, what if this is sort of unlike Good, the Bad, and the Ugly or so many others? What if this is a movie about a guy who's already found his riches in gold?
Ooh, that's interesting.
So we start with him already having completed the treasure hunt, and now is forced to do. Yes. There are consequences to having amassed the gold.
So it literally starts with him finding the gold.
Yeah,
and then the movie is following. That's really John. That's really interesting.
That could be an interesting movie.
Idea.
That's an interesting.
I actually like that.
Walton Goggins.
He's got to get the gold out of there.
Yep.
You know, like that's going to be a whole fucking process. And then, like, as soon as and maybe his obsession with keeping it is part of, like, you know, what's weighing him down, trying to get out of this, like, dangerous path that he's retreading. You know?
Yeah, it's touching on similar subject matters like Treasure Sierra Madre in, like, what treasure, what the finding of treasure can do to you psychologically. Obviously, so maybe it's maybe it's like a gauntlet movie in terms of, like, there are all these other people who are also looking for the gold, and now that he has it, they're looking for him, and he's got to get it from point A to point B.
Including
one Eric Roberts. Yes, Eric Roberts, who was his partner on this, and then was betrayed. Now, Eric Roberts is also, you know, like, Goggins had good reason to betray him. You know what I mean? Like, but he's like, I think it should be one of those misguided villains where it's like, yeah, dude, he did betray you, but you were going to betray him first, so you don't have any, you know.
Well, because Walton Goggins can be a bit of a scoundrel too. He doesn't have to be like a perfect person.
That's the thing. He's the lesser of the evils between him and Eric Roberts.
Of course. Yeah.
And then maybe in his search, he comes to take refuge with, like, a family or something like that, homesteaders of some sort. So then he brings the danger to them. So suddenly we have now, because just the threat to Walton Goggins, okay, he kind of brought it on himself. But if he inadvertently or less than advertently, you know, brings this danger to them, suddenly now we have the stakes of innocent people are involved in this battle for the gold.
Right. And I assume at some point he'll have to make a decision between the gold, you know, and greed, and, you know, these people in some way.
And maybe that's the thing. Like, that's the, in a sort of Indiana Jones way. Like, that's the thing that ends in the conflict between him and Eric Roberts. His willingness to let the gold go leads to his sort of, at least beginnings of redemption, and will be the thing that destroys Eric Roberts.
Right, exactly.
This is actually one of the more complex and interesting movies.
This is a great movie, John. I think I would actually very much want to write this.
Yeah, man, Ruins of Gold. This is the first one where it's like, yeah, man, I've always wanted to write a Western, so that's not bad. Yeah. And also, fucking Walton Goggins would crush it, man.
Yes, absolutely, he would. Yeah,
that dude.
Oh man,
that dude is amazing.
He's amazing.
And I think we were talking about this off mic. Born to do Westerns. I mean, he can do anything, but he just so beautifully fits this genre. He is such
in a way that Scott Eastwood just does not fit.
It's the exact opposite.
Perfectly fits.
It's the exact opposite. And of course, one of my favorite modern Westerns, but Justified with him and Tim Oliphant, and both of those guys
Yeah.
scream the West.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna leave the West for the gritty streets of Chicago next week on the show. That's right, folks. Chicago, and we're going back to the 90s. Oh, what a decade. That's right, folks. It's time for 1993's Excessive Force. Thomas Ian Griffith. This is the first time we're talking about him. Thomas Ian Griffith of Karate Kid 3 fame. He plays iconic Karate Kid villain Terry Silver, and continues to do so on Cobra Kai. But this guy is another one of our. We're going to eventually get around to all the martial arts guys. But this movie not only stars, but is written by Mr. Griffith as well.
Oh shit!
And let's see. As always, Listman, this tagline. This is not a canon movie, but this tagline should be for a canon movie. It's pure gold. Would you like to hear this tagline?
Yeah, let's do it.
You have the right to remain silent. ... Permanently. That is a
Good
perfect
Lord.
1993 action movie tagline. Yes, Thomas Ian Griffith. Got a good cast here. Thomas Ian Griffith, James Earl Jones. The great Lance Henriksen, one of our favorites. Tony Todd. And Burt Young, Paulie from the Rocky movies is in this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Damn.
this could be
quite the cast.
This could be something. I've never seen this movie. I really do like Thomas Ian Griffith. I think he's not only a great martial artist, but actually a good actor. This movie seems ridiculous. The mullet and earring that he has as tough Chicago cop also screams 1993. Because the poster is just him with a gigantic gun, of course. But you got to check out. Do you see that mullet and earring?
Oh Jesus! Oh wow! That is something.
It is something, man.
That is something.
Yes, very excited to watch this. This has been in the pool of movies to do, and I wanted. This will be the first, but there's some other Thomas Ian Griffith movies. If we like this, we can get to. I've long wanted to do his movie Cracker Jack as well, which is a mountain climbing movie. Well, I don't think we've ever done a mountain-based one on here, have we?
We should do one.
That's kind of like a subgenre of the mountain climbing action movie. Your cliffhangers, your Eiger sanctions, vertical limit.
I feel like there's not really a lot of room for stuff like that anymore. I mean,
no,
there's been enough to where, like, has everything been explored in sort of the mountain climbing?
Well, I don't know if you saw this, sort of in the wake of Top Gun Maverick, where they're doing everything. Stallone's coming back as Cliffhanger. He's doing a Lega sequel where he's returning as his Cliffhanger character to train a new generation of Cliffhangers, which is perfect.
It is. I will say, Cliffhanger and Top Gun are so different.
So different.
Cultural, cachet that they wield,
man,
but,
I'm excited for Excessive Force. If you look at some of these IMDb pictures, him in this long black duster hanging off of stuff and shooting people, this looks very fun.
I've seen this movie poster, like on the the titular action shot.
Absolutely.
Back in the 90s and early 2000s. I've seen this.
Absolutely. I thought this would be. And this was a New Line. This is a New Line Cinema picture, and this was. I'll just keep this in mind when we go into next week's movie. This was meant to be. They go. We've got our answer to Steven Seagal.
What a statement!
Thomas Ian Griffith was meant to be, because one of the other taglines they used. It was in the 70s, Chuck Norris. In the 80s, Steven Seagal. In the 90s, action has a whole new name. Thomas Ian Griffith.
Except this time, he's not a rapist.
Yes, actually, Thomas Ian Griffith is apparently an incredibly lovely man who people love working with.
Yeah,
and actually retired from acting for an extremely long time to just focus on writing, and came out of retirement to do Cobra Kai. To reprise his role from the Karate Kid, which he is fucking amazing in. Yeah. And just as a thing, he is an expert in Taekwondo and Kempo karate, and also has training in kickboxing, wrestling, and fencing.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So we'll check that out. That'll be next week on the show. And I don't know what the licensing on that is, but it is just available for free on YouTube. So
great.
It can be watched by anybody anywhere. Yeah. That is nice. But that'll be next week on the show. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Action Shelf. I'm John Campbell.
And I'm Michael Lisman.
Until next week, get yourself some action.
The Action Shelf. The Action Shelf.